Iran protest rally turns deadly. A rally by the pro-reform presidential candidate Mousavi turned violent when gunshots were fired, apparently by the pro-government militia. An Associated Press photographer saw at least one person shot dead and a number of others who appeared to be seriously wounded in Azadi Square. The shooting came from a compound for volunteer militia linked to Iran's powerful Revolutionary Guard. There has been sporadic shooting out there. I can see people running here, said a reporter with Iran's English language press TV. An Iranian news photographer said protesters had attacked the compound and that members of a religious militia then opened fire. The shooting was followed by reports from residents of 3 neighborhoods in northern Tehran who said shooting was heard there as well. Hundreds of thousands of Mousavi backers had defied an Interior Ministry ban to cheer their leader in his first public appearance since elections he claims were marred by fraud. The government says the current president, Ahmadinejad, won re-election with 63% of the vote. So far, 3 days of rioting have followed, leaving parts of Tehran scarred by flames and shattered storefronts, the worst unrest in the capital in at least a decade. Security forces have struck back with targeted arrests of pro-reform activists and blocks on text messaging and pro-Mousavi websites used to rally his supporters. The massive show of support for Mousavi began as people poured from buildings and side streets wearing the trademark green of Mousavi's campaign. Before the shooting, Mousavi had paused on the edge of Freedom Square to address the crowd, which stretched for 5 miles. They roared back, "Long live Mousavi." "This is not election. This is selection," read one English language sign at the demonstration. Other marchers held signs proclaiming, "We want our vote," and raised their fingers in a V for victory. Salute. "We want our president, not the one who was forced on us," said 28-year-old Sarah, who gave only her first name because of fears of reprisals from the authorities. Hours earlier, the supreme leader directed one of Iran's most influential bodies, the Guardian Council, to examine claims of election fraud. But there was no guarantee that the move by Khomeini, who had earlier welcomed the election results, would satisfy those challenging Ahmadinejad's re-election or quell rioting. The outcome of the election has disconcerted Western powers trying to induce the world's 5th biggest oil exporter to curb its nuclear program. U.S. President Barack Obama had urged Iran's leadership to unclench its fist and renew ties with Washington. The 12-member Guardian Council, made up of clerics and experts in Islamic law, must certify the election results and has the apparent authority to nullify an election, but it's not very likely. No, probably not. voting irregularities went before the council after the current president's upset victory in 2005, but there was never any official word on the outcome of the investigation, and the vote stood. A massive display of opposition unity suggested a possible shift in tactics by authorities after cracking down hard during 3 days of rioting. State TV quoted the Guardian Council, or said the Guardian Council was to carefully probe the allegations of fraud. On Saturday, however, the Supreme Leader urged the nation to unite behind the current president, Ahmadinejad, and called the result a divine assessment. One of Mousavi's websites said a student protester was killed in clashes with plainclothes hardliners in southern Iran, but there is no independent confirmation of the report. There have also been unconfirmed reports of unrest in other cities throughout the country. Most media are not allowed to travel beyond the capital city, thus cannot independently confirm protests in other cities. Overnight, police and hardline militia stormed the campus at the city's biggest university, ransacking and arresting dozens of students angry over what they say was mass election fraud. The nighttime gathering of approximately 3,000 students at dormitories of Tehran University started with students chanting "Death to the dictator," but it very quickly erupted into clashes as students threw rocks and Molotov cocktails at police, who fought back with tear gas and plastic bullets, said a 25-year-old student who witnessed the fighting. The students set a truck and other vehicles on fire and threw stones and bricks at the police. He said hardline militia volunteers loyal to the Revolutionary Guard stormed the dormitories, ransacking student rooms and smashing computers and furniture with axes and wooden sticks. More violence, more chaos, and confusion. Many students suffered bruises, cuts, and broken bones in the scuffling, but there was still burning or smoldering garbage on the campus, but that the situation had calmed down. Many students are now leaving to go home to their families. They are scared, but others are staying. The police and militia say they will be back and arrest any students that they see. "I want to stay because they beat us and we won't retreat," said one student. In Washington, U.S. Vice President Joe Biden said that Obama's effort to engage Tehran after a nearly 3-decade estrangement would continue, regardless of the election's result. Biden told NBC's Meet the Press that the administration was still examining whether the vote in Iran accurately reflected a response to Obama's desire for engagement. "That's the question," the vice president said. "Is this the result of the people's wishes? The hope is that the Iranian people, all their votes have been counted. They've been counted fairly. But look," he said, "we just don't know enough." Yes, more violence, more chaos, more confusion. And once again, all these things are more signs of the end times, transition days. There are many, many signs. The transition is ongoing. day by day, every day.